the DISCE recovery program run by Tech. This series of webinars aims at examining how culture can move forward from the pandemic's setbacks in an attempt to invent solutions and propose answers. Make sure to check the links on our website and Facebook page. On the panel, we are honored to have Marina Maleni, Theatre Development Officer, Cyprus Theatre Organization THOC, Nihal Sokanji, Creative Director at Buffer Fringe, and Home for Cooperation Administration's Officer, Monica Simenu, Artist and Theorist, Yiannis Toumazis, Director of NiMAC and Professor in Art History and Theory at Frederick University, and Burak Sein from Tech, who will also be joining our discussion. Please make sure to rate this DISCE webinar afterwards in our Facebook poll. Feel free to drop your name and contact details via email at info@nimac.org.cy to keep you updated on the activities of Trans-Europe Halles. But first, let's see a brief interview conducted with the Mayor of Nicosia, Konstantinos Giorgakis.
It has always been the strategy and the effort of the municipality to partner either with individuals or foundations in order to create cultural centers. An excellent example, the Leventis Municipal Museum, a partnership with the Leventis Foundation, of course. Our common efforts and partnership with Mr. Pieridis in creating the Nicosia Arts Foundation. And in addition, we have also taken very recently, in the last couple of years, I think, an abandoned derelict building behind the Nicosia Art Foundation. We created a small theatre, Theatre, an excellent way to use derelict buildings and bring them back into use by society. We have partnered with the engraver Hambis to create a museum of printing called the Hambis Museum of Printing. And last but not least, in an effort to use either old buildings or abandoned buildings or buildings in transition, we have used our pop-up efforts to use temporarily the old market, the Agora project, which was an amazing success that unfortunately ended because we're ready to start building the new space for our research center called RISE at the same location. After the initial shock, because in my opinion the pandemic found everybody unprepared, during the lockdown period, all of our efforts, the municipality efforts, were geared toward safety and health. We tried to be punctual in picking up garbage, in making sure that the playgrounds were empty, etc., etc., etc. After the lockdown, we started addressing issues of businesses and issues of the people involved in the cultural sector. A couple of things. We offered all spaces, and either indoors or outdoors, free of charge, and primarily in an effort to benefit the individual artist. At the same time, we abandoned and we cancelled all entertainment tax that we usually would charge a large event or a theatre or a cinema. I think culture offers hope during very harsh times like this, especially when people are alone or uncertain or afraid. I think culture is the light at the end of the tunnel, if you wish. But not only that, I think culture is if you're driving in this dark tunnel, Culture is the somebody co-driver that holds your hand during this difficult time. So I will end as I started this sentence. I think culture offers hope during these difficult times.
Culture does offer hope, that's for sure. Let's go now to our panel and welcome Burak Sein from TEH for a short introduction. And then Yiannis will take the floor for the roundtable discussion entitled A Way Forward, Cultural Policies for Shifting Gear or Shifting Ground.
Hello, do you hear me? Yes. Hey, my name is Burak, and I'm the community manager of Transeuropal. And I will briefly present the Developing Inclusive and Sustainable Creative Economies project that I'm managing on behalf of Transeuropal. And afterwards, I will just briefly explain how it's connected to the panel today. So what is developing inclusive and sustainable creative economies? DISCE in short. So it's a 3-year Horizon 2020 project. For the ones who don't know, Horizon 2020 is a European Union program that researched the future of European Union in different topics. And in this project, the topic is creative economies. And with our project, we are looking at the basic question: what are inclusive and sustainable creative economies? How can they be developed? And of course, this is not an easy task. For that, we have 3 million euros with 6 partners: University of Turku, King's College London, GSSI, Q Media, Stockholm School of Economics, and Transeuropal. And the role of Transeuropal here is connecting local stakeholders in the cultural and creative sectors with the European context. So connecting local context to European context. And within this project, we have 5 teams. The first one is mapping cultural and creative industries and collecting statistics from 28 countries. And another one is creative workforce, skills and education, and business model and innovation, cultural development, and policy and stakeholder interaction. And within these teams, we are looking at current tensions that exist in the cultural and creative industries. And maybe you might recognize some of the tensions. It could be some of us are working in the commercial sector, and other ones are working in non-commercial sector. Some of us are innovative, and some of us not necessarily innovative, and so on. And within this project, Transeuropal is in charge of coordinating 3 co-creation labs, and one of them will take place in Nicosia in April. So moving on, what makes DISCE different? So with DISCE, we have robust statistical analysis, meaning that our researchers are collecting, digging into different databases all around Europe, and mapping the data in a meta level so they can be under one umbrella. On top of that, we have in-depth regional case studies that you will see in the next slide. We are more taking a qualitative approach. And on top of that, we are actively co-creating and interacting with the stakeholders, which is actually going to happen in the panel following this presentation. And briefly, our case studies, our researchers have completed their field research on this, 10 locations from Finland to Italy to UK. And now we are entering into analysis phase. Actually, you can see that we have recently published a policy brief on creative economy and outlined 4 important questions. First question is, what is creative economy policy and why does it matter? And the second one, who needs to be involved? And the third one, what information do they need? And the fourth one, what should they be trying to achieve? So this is our starting point with DISCE, and then we have first first indicators, what is needed for developing the future of creative economies in the EU. We need our researchers, and with our co-creation labs too, and then several other activities, we figured out we need adequate concepts and vocabularies. We need ecological framing of innovation within creative economy policy. We need more participatory approaches, and we need systemic inclusivity and sustainability. And this policy brief is in our website. Please check it out. It's the DISCE.eu, and we have listed quite many points regarding the creative economy policy. So more participatory approach and systemic inclusivity brings me to the stakeholder consultancies that now we are organizing as we enter the last year of the project. So the first point is the national webinars that will take place in Cyprus, Italy, and Spain. And in Spain and the Cyprus is the first of them. And we are also launching a survey today. Please fill it in. It's very important. It's a very short survey, just 12 questions about the future of creative economies and what's your understanding about it. And your contribution is very important. And again, today we are starting a P2P recovery program, meaning that we will provide a consultation and a matchmaking program for cultural practitioners in these four countries, Cyprus, Greece, Italy, and Spain. And then we will organize a big international webinar on the 19th of March. And then that will be finalized, and then as the final event, the co-creation lab at NiMAC Cyprus. So today is the start of let's say, a journey, and then I hope the panel discussion will be very active. And thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Burak. Hi again, dear friends. I hope you're enjoying our virtual Cypriot hospitality. I'm afraid due to the new measures, we need to wear masks even during this broadcast. So I'm here with two great friends. We are the three musketeers in the studio, and we have another friend online. Before presenting them and before starting, let's say, the discussion, allow me to make a short introduction in Greek for our Greek-speaking audiences, but also we thought it would be nice for you to hear some Greek, since Greek is one of the main languages on the island, and it's happening, the meeting is happening in Nicosia. It's about, of course, the crisis and the cultural sector that affect us all so much and so deeply. Οι τομείς των πολιτιστικών και των εικαστικών έχουν υποστεί μεγάλο πλήγμα και συνεχίζουν εδώ και ένα χρόνο να δοκιμάζονται. Η πανδημία ενέτεινε την ήδη κλονισμένη πολιτιστική σκηνή. Πολλά μουσεία, ιδρύματα, πολιτιστικά και εικαστικά κέντρα, αλλά ιδιαίτερα η πλειοψηφία των δημιουργών και των καλλιτεχνών βίωσαν και εξακολουθούν ακόμη να βιώνουν τις επιπτώσεις της πανδημίας, τα επαναλαμβανόμενα lockdowns και τους πολλούς και ποικίλους περιορισμούς που επιδίνωσαν τα υπάρχοντα προβλήματα στους ιδιαίτερα εύθραυστους αυτούς τομείς. Οι λιγοστές και ανεπαρκείς αποφάσεις που πάρθηκαν για τη στήριξη των καλλιτεχνών και των ιδρυμάτων δεν φαίνεται να αποδίδουν. Στην Κύπρο συγκεκριμένα, το εργασιακό καθεστώς αυτών που απασχολούνται στον χώρο του πολιτισμού και των τεχνών εκκρεμεί ακόμη, με αποτέλεσμα πολλοί καλλιτέχνες να αναγκάζονται να δουλεύουν στο περιθώριο της οικονομίας. Επομένως, είναι αναμενόμενο ο καθένας που εργάζεται ή εμπλέκεται με τον ένα ή τον άλλο τρόπο στην πολιτιστική και καλλιτεχνική παραγωγή να ανησυχεί τόσο για το δικό του μέλλον, όσο και για αυτό του χώρου στον οποίο δραστηριοποιείται, αφού δυστυχώς το μέλλον αυτό διαγράφεται αβέβαιο. Οι τέχνες και ο πολιτισμός ως πρακτική είναι πολύ πιο θεμελιώδεις και χρήσιμοι τομείς για την κοινωνία από ό,τι έχουμε πιστέψει ως σήμερα. Από τη φύση τους, οι τομείς του πολιτισμού και των τεχνών προωθούν καινοτόμους τρόπους εργασίας και χρησιμοποιούν πολλές φορές μη συμβατικές τεχνικές επίλυσης προβλημάτων. Επιπλέον, τα άτομα που δραστηριοποιούνται σε αυτούς τους τομείς δημιουργούν και υλοποιούν νέες ιδέες. Ως εκ τούτου, υπάρχουν ούκο λίγες περιπτώσεις που προκύπτουν από τον πολιτισμό, οι οποίες θα μπορούσαν να εφαρμοστούν ευρύτερα και σε άλλους τομείς. Αυτό που είδαμε ήδη από τους πρώτους μήνες της εκδήλωσης και εξάπλωσης της πανδημίας είναι ότι ο πολιτισμός δεν είναι μόνο απίστευτα ευπροσάρμοστος, αλλά επίσης το χαρακτηρίζουν τα ευγενή αισθήματα όπως ο αλτρουισμός, η αλληλεγγύη, η συναδελφικότητα και η φιλία. Είναι σημαντικό, περισσότερο τώρα παρά ποτέ, να αναπτύξουμε τις συνεργασίες μας, να επιδείξουμε θετική στάση και να δουλέψουμε σε νέες πλατφόρμες δημιουργίας, συνέργειας και προβολής. Το τελευταίο διάστημα, η συζήτηση γύρω από την τέχνη περιβάλλεται από όρους όπως δημιουργικές συνεργασίες, ψηφιακή προσαρμογή, νέα μοντέλα παραγωγής, διαδικτυακή και ψηφιακή ποιότητα και προγράμματα στήριξης θέσεων εργασίας. Στη συζήτηση που ακολουθεί θα επιδιώξουμε να διερευνήσουμε και να αναλύσουμε ζητήματα που αφορούν στο πόσο πλήγει ο πολιτιστικός τομέας, στον τρόπο με τον οποίο αντιμετωπίζουμε εμείς τα ιδρύματα, τα μουσεία, τα κέντρα τεχνών, τα θέατρα, οι καλλιτέχνες, τα προβλήματα και τις αντιξιότητες που προέκυψαν, σε σχέδια και στρατηγικές μετά την πανδημία, αλλά και στην ικανότητα προσαρμογής μας στα νέα δεδομένα και στη σημαντικότητα των καινοτόμων συνεργασιών και συνεργειών. Ευχαριστώ πολύ. So do not worry if all this sounded all Greek to you, because we are going to repeat it in English. I was just actually telling some very sad realities about how culture was struck by this pandemic, by this unique and unheard of situation that we are experiencing today. So as Pashas told us before, I'm here with some dear friends. Marina Maleni. Marina Maleni is a development officer at the State Theatre of Cyprus. She works there for many years and she knows very, very well not only the theatrical and artistic scene of Cyprus, but also the challenges that this scene is facing. We are having Monica Asimenu. Monica is an active art theorist and historian, deeply involved into the visual art scene in Cyprus. And also online, we have Nihal Soganchi. Nihal is working at Home for Cooperation. We'll talk about the Home for Cooperation because it's a unique example of how the two communities of Cyprus are coming together through culture. It's situated in the buffer zone of Nicosia. And she's also creative director at Buffer Fringe Festival, a very innovative idea around theater and performance. So my first, let's say, question is, I think, obvious. I would like to ask you, how are you keeping under these very difficult circumstances? I must stress to our European audiences that as from tomorrow, new measures are implemented due to the COVID pandemic. And unfortunately, for us, the most serious of these measures is that all theaters, cinemas, galleries, art spaces will be closed until the 31st of December. So all performances, we were going to organize the pop-up festival here in this same space and an exhibition next door at NiMAC. Unfortunately, these will be postponed until the measures will be over. So, Marina, let me start with you. How are you keeping?
Well, in Cyprus, much like all other countries, the cultural sector has been one of the hardest hit. And I'm hoping that it's, even though it seems like it's wounded deeply, it's not deadly wounded. We're trying to fight back and we're trying to keep positive. If there's one thing that it taught us is to adapt, to it's difficult, and the reason I want to make a point of this is because that it seems here in Cyprus and perhaps also in other countries, the cultural sector and the arts people seem to be the ones falling between the cracks of any relief funds, of any plans the government makes, or of any thoughts politicians usually make before they announce difficult measures. We always seem to fall between the cracks. And for the first part of the pandemic, it has been an issue here in Cyprus that theatre people, for example, if I were to speak of our field, theatre people were always complaining that measures would be announced about public spaces being shut down or things changing in our daily lives and work, and there would always be a need to go back for clarifications in terms of theatre and arts. And of course, as gatherings were the first thing prohibited in order to be secure from from COVID, and gatherings are, of course, essential to have performing arts, it would seem only reasonable that there would be an extra care from the government to sustain or to help culture and cultural organizations sustain through this crisis. Unfortunately, it has not been the case, and it has taught us, however, to make the best of it, to adapt, to also gather with, even though we are gathering electronically, to gather with colleagues from other countries, and that has given us great strength. So for the three pillars, and I'll say this and I will allow the discussion to go on, we've been looking at three pillars: audience, theatre companies, theatre workers, and trying to see how we could develop things in a better way for them during the pandemic. And in our communication with colleagues from other countries, we have found great strength, and we have also found great ways to adapt and face challenges. So we are just trying to hang in there and make sure that theatre goes on. We've been one of the first countries, I think, in Europe to reopen theatres. We have this great weather that helps us, and we will continue to try to keep things as secure, and this word has many meanings in this case, as possible for theatre people and arts people.
It's true that COVID was not, I mean, that's what the scientists say, that theaters were were keeping the measures quite well. And I mean, we didn't have any cases in theaters or art spaces.
No.
It
And
was
theatre people have been amazing. Excuse me to interrupt, but this is something we are very proud of. Theatre people have been amazing at finding solutions, at being disciplined, at helping the audience feel secure when they come in the space, so that they could still enjoy without feeling that they're entering an army camp with all these prohibitions. But they have been great at keeping with the measures in order to secure this precious thing that we have, the communication with live audience.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Marina. Let's go to Monica. Monica, I know that you're actively involved into the visual art scene.
Exactly.
You work together with artists, and we all know that in Cyprus, I mean, even the status of the artist is not something given, that artists have to struggle. So how are artists, how do they feel under these strange circumstances, and theorists and people who really live from their profession?
Before talking about artists, the visual artists in Cyprus, I would like to make a small introduction. When I was asked to partake in this discussion on the impact of COVID-19 on culture, I told myself that beyond the identification of the consequences of COVID-19, of this pandemic, we also need to draw attention to recommendations for immediate action. And some sectors have already implemented measures and procedures in order to overcome the crisis. And the sector of education is a strong example. From day one, schools and universities have implemented new procedures, new methods, digital methods of learning. So what I would like to point out through this discussion is these actions and strategies that we need to take into consideration. But in order to do so, in order to find solutions, we must firstly identify the needs and the challenges, and I believe that the need constitutes the key for the action, for change. Taking action emerges from a need. As you have said, the creative sector is among the most affected, and the venue-based sectors such as theaters, the visual arts, cinemas, festivals are the hardest hit by these distancing measures. Many museums, art galleries, as you have said, are closed, and we are facing reductions of private and public fundings. When it comes to the cultural sector in Cyprus, the creative sector, we realize that the need has been existing a long time ago. I believe that the creative sector in Cyprus is at stake, and the fact, as Yiannis has said, the fact that the profession of artist is not yet secured, it's a stronger evidence. I would like here to refer, before giving the floor to Yiannis, I would like to refer to a phenomenon that is related to the social role of artists in Cyprus, and I believe it is enhanced during this pandemic. We see artists and art historians and curators, they deal less with art discourses than finding ways to establish processes upon which the art scene will potentially flourish. So therefore, the insufficiency of infrastructures steer artists towards an approach of taking the role of an educator in an effort to engage the audience on the one hand, and on the other to provide strategies and provide procedures for a sustainable development in this field, in the art field, and in culture in general.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Monica. Let's now go to Nihal Zoganji. She's participating online. Hi, Nihal. Hi. Can you hear us?
Oh, sorry. Hello.
Okay.
Can you
Yes,
hear me now?
now we can hear you. Nihal, you are a Turkish Cypriot. You live in the northern part of Nicosia that we all know. We said it this morning that Nicosia, like the whole of Cyprus, is divided into two parts. So this poses an extra difficulty into getting together through culture. Of course, the Home for Cooperation does many, many things towards that. Could you tell us how do you feel and how the community of Turkish Cypriot artists face this pandemic?
First of all, I think the thing that influenced us the most in that sense was the closure of the checkpoints, both at a personal and a professional level. Home for Cooperation is a shared space for intercommunal cooperation and contacts, and with a focus on culture and the arts. But what happens when people cannot physically come together anymore? So with the pandemic, it created a split in all our planned activity. And however, this split was also a moment of questioning, thinking, and adaptation for us, which meant that we had to find other possibilities to enable the cooperation of people, of artists, and and everybody who is basically involved in cultural and artistic sector. For instance, let's take as an example, we have language classes in Turkish and Greek. And when we couldn't have them anymore, we decided that we will go online. So we contacted all the teachers and the students, and we continued with our classes online. We received very positive feedback because it gave people motivation during strict lockdown days, and it made it easier, let's say, in a way. It provided a platform to come together, even virtually. Also, we had our United by Sound program, which is a local project that uses music for peace building and social change. So we use music as a tool to build connections, foster empathy, and shape communities. So when these artists can no longer come together, we had to find an alternative way and initiated a move for a supergroup of the island's musicians to join forces. The result is a song that drives the message home that no amount of divisive politics or pandemic will stop the communities from coming together. Recorded by Island Seeds, a collective of nearly 40 musicians from across the divide, with the song Time is Right, sees the troupe of artists sing their invitation of cooperation and being together despite the pandemic. And of course, the Buffer Fringe 2020. And the preparations for the Buffer Fringe 2020 started during actually the full lockdown. So we face this dilemma. Do we continue? Do we try to find a way to go ahead, or do we cancel? And we said, no, we will find a way. We will invent new ways of creating this thinking and creative ground for the artists of the island and of the world. And we had our alternative methods, which include the process sharing method, that we didn't want the artists to just focus on one single performance at the end of the preparations, but we wanted to hear the process of creation. So we created a blog which also included a section where we could embed live streaming of the performances in case everybody had to be home and could just send us recordings of their work. So through this blog, we shared, we streamed the performances and also the process of the work. Then again, we had the Thinking Partners program, which was also a creative product of thinking and discussing and understanding each other during the pandemic, actually, with our that is the result of our discussions with our partners from the USA, from the impact community of the Brandeis University, as well as online discussions with people from many different parts of the world that wouldn't have been possible, or we wouldn't maybe have put so much emphasis on it if it wasn't actually for the pandemic situation.
Fringe is a great example. Would you like to tell us a bit more? Which edition of the Buffer Fringe is just happened this year? I think it started some years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it started in 2014, and this year we had the 7th edition of the Buffer Fringe with many events and performances, actually. We started with online discussions on the 21st of October. Then on the 14th of November, we had two performances live streamed from the Gallatin Galleries in New York. We had artists from the USA and a Greek Cypriot artist based in the USA who could perform from there, and we could live stream this. Then followed with an online discussion. Then we had on the 29th of November a video performance from Limassol. And on the 4th, we were in North Nicosia at Emma with physical performances, also live stream. And on the 5 and 6, we were at Theatropolis, and many thanks to you all for also making that possible with physical performances, which were also live streamed to everybody around the world or everybody in Cyprus who couldn't be there.
Yeah. And maybe it's important to clarify for our foreign audiences that there are the two communities of Cyprus, the main communities, let's say the Greek and Turkish Cypriot, can come together, actually can pass from the north to the south through a limited number of checkpoints that are even more limited now because of the pandemic. And we need to have a PCR test that lasts for 72 hours. So that makes things even more costly and difficult to communicate. That's why these new ways of finding new ways of communication, especially virtually and electronically, and are very, very important for us. And the Home for Cooperation, which is situated on the division line, is doing a lot on that. So let's concentrate on our organizations then, and which methods did we develop, did we rediscover or discover to face these challenges. Marina, State Theatre of Cyprus is an important, a big organization established in 1971. How are things going there?
Say first that THOC, the Theatre Organization of Cyprus, is also the theatre development agency of the government. So in this sense, we also deal with the subsidies that go from the state to the private theaters. And we also deal with a number of other subjects like theater in schools, non-professional theater, European programs, playwriting, etc. So we've had to deal with a lot of different things. And I would like to draw on something that Monica mentioned, the needs. It's first important to identify the needs. And so this is the way we proceeded. On the first day of the pandemic, of the measures announced in March, we had meetings with the theaters first to see where they are, how they were doing. The subsidies were in the middle. Some of them were ready to go on premieres. Others were not near there. Others were finishing it. So we tried to establish, I would say, our the ways we dealt with most things all come back to identifying the needs and opening dialogues. This was our policy with the theaters, with the schools, with the non-professional theater people, with the ministry, trying to establish open channels of communication and letting them know that we were there to assist. So we tried to get, first of all, with the theater, like I said before, with the three pillars, the main three pillars of the situation we had. With the theater companies, we tried to get the subsidies out to the theaters, even if they didn't meet all the requirements, so that in turn they could pay the people and ensure that we didn't have jobless people with no money over a long period of time. And then we also, of course, honored all our contracts, and as much as possible, the board of directors tried to stand by the theater workers in general. And when we say theater workers, of course, we don't just mean the artists, we mean a whole bunch of people who depend on their jobs, like everyone. So we honored contracts even though they couldn't be implemented, and we also tried to um, get in touch and see how needs could be met, not just from our expertise, but from friends from abroad. Um, I think dialogue was one of the most important things that we tried to establish with all stakeholders. We of course did the live streaming, honoring also the rights of the people involved. And when when we started seeing that things were coming to where we could have theaters open, we tried to have a performance on the very first day theaters could open according to the state measures, just to say that we are here and we will keep strong and we will stand by whoever tries to keep the arts alive. You know, I feel that if I take my other hat, I think that all the arts had a tremendous impact on how people went through the pandemic and tried to keep their identities, their sanities, and make the most of their energies that this whole thing is draining us of. So that's why I feel that on going through trying to cope with or trying to define, let's say, the things an organization or the state or any company has to do in order to deal with the pandemic, we have to have as first and foremost the availability of the arts to people. They have to be accessible, and in order for them to be accessible, artists have to be able to create, but they also have to be able to take and give out there their work. So, and I will sum this up by trying to say that forums, discussions, exchanges, distances diminishing, being part in forums that in fora that we wouldn't have before otherwise, was also the positive side of side effect of the pandemic. And I feel that we have kept well so far in being positive about it. And I'm speaking all this, trying not to think of the new measures that were announced yesterday, because that's going to be tougher.
How did the audiences respond to the reopening, let's say, after the lockdown? Were they, I mean,
it was
coming back to the theaters?
Yes, it was touching because they were coming. I remember on that first day that I was there, they came like an hour and a half earlier, which for Cypriots is not something that's usual, with their own pillows, with their bottle of water, waiting patiently in line, keeping the 2 meters distance. But this wasn't just for the first day. They were touched to be able to go to the theater. And it went on with most theaters having full houses with the 50% measure. The audience is there, and the audience, I believe, helped a lot in artists staying strong to continue in very, very difficult conditions to offer performances.
Yes. Yeah. How about you, Monica? You collaborate with a major cultural foundation. Would you like to tell us how your organization coped with this situation?
Well, the questions that arise throughout this period are what are the actions and recommendations after identifying the needs? What are the actions and recommendations to focus on, and what about our future plans and strategies for a sustainable development in the art field and in culture? So as part of the team of the Bank of Cyprus Cultural Foundation, we had, like every other foundation, we had to redefine our program as all of our scheduled events have been cancelled. So we created thus a new platform of a new digital platform of events educational podcasts, exhibitions, digital exhibitions based on the collections of the foundation, maintaining thus the aim, the goals of the foundation, and at the same time maintaining a dialogue with artists and stakeholders, and being adjusted to communities' needs also. I would like here to refer also to the new European project of our team. It's a European project which its acronym is Reinherit, and we will be running, our team will be running this program as a coordinator, and its purpose is to create a model of sustainable heritage management in order to provide innovative technological tools and for the creation of a digital dynamic European network. It will be a model that will be based on a digital cultural heritage ecosystem, and it will be related to subjects such as conservation, preservation, communication with museums and heritage sites. And the most important, it is that it will be it will be a model of sustainable, a cultural sustainable model of management that will provide technological solutions. It will be digital, so it is very related to what during this pandemic is one of the most important needs.
May I add something? I think one of the things, and perhaps you can comment on it also, artists, what they did in this pandemic was that they really took seriously into consideration the audience's needs, whatever this audience was, and took every step of the way special care from the way the audience would find the information about the arts, get to the arts, how they would feel safe, how they would have all the information while they were enjoying the arts, to enjoy them with safety, but also have the joy that needs to be during that process, and then how they would leave there and again safely would go back to where they were. And I think this was a great thing that helped the audiences respond so well.
And maybe it's important here to add that unfortunately, the artists of Cyprus did not have the same attention as professionals by the government as all the other groups of professionals had during the first lockdown, and I mean financial attention. Unfortunately, what the mayor said, culture is the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that unfortunately culture is also at the bottom of the list of priorities. And another good thing that came out because of this crisis and pandemic is that the artists of Cyprus were organized together. They really protested about that, and finally they managed to get
a bit of attention.
A bit of attention, modest attention, let's say, but at least we show how resilient, let's say, our sector as the creative sector is, and how things could progress in the future, which brings me to, let's say, to the final round of this discussion. And maybe, Nihala, will start with you this time. Okay, we tried several new methods, digital methods, electronic methods, new ways of communication, new ways of artistic creation. Even this CAM meeting now is done through internet, while it's all about hugging, meeting, eating, drinking, discussing. It's all about coffee breaks. We cannot, we wear these pieces of cloth in front of us. So what will we keep? Fortunately, the pandemic will end in a while. Let's all hope. What do you think we will keep from all these new inventions or reinventions or redefinitions of how cultural creation could perform? How could perform culture, let's say? What is your opinion? Will we go back to the old good times, or this hybrid, let's say, world will stay with us for quite some time?
I personally don't think that it's possible, or that we would want to go back to the good old ways. I mean, to the only physical ways. I feel that because now it's possible to imagine, to combine in our work and in our planning this online element as well, which also had its benefits as well. I feel that we need a balance between the physical and the virtual. So let's say to do these online discussions where people are dispersed all over the world, or to live stream the performances, let's say, to reach a much wider audience. I mean, I think these are productive elements of the pandemic as well. I do not only look at it in negative terms, I must say. Or you know, we had to put extra attention to how we can create a thinking ground and a questioning ground, and that had creative results as well. So I think we would always keep these along, and I mean, it's also, of course, we're human, we need the physical contact. It's not compared to be in wherever we are surrounded with people, to share a space together, to share an experience together. We need this element, definitely. I mean, we cannot continue only online and stream performances without an audience. I don't think this is also possible. But let's say what I realized during the Buffer Fringe 2020 is that, for me, the performances that affected me the most and deeply were the ones that used the physical and the virtual together. So there was a physical audience, a performance with a connection to the online, to, let's say, to Vikram, who was in India, or to Marita, who was in quarantine at home. And I think bringing all of these elements together was something very interesting and meaningful that we would keep in the future as well.
Monica, do you think this is an opening to a new era? What do you think?
I believe that the implications of the new normal must occupy the cultural sector as well. And this situation surely calls for stronger investments and revised measure of success and sustainability, financial support for the creative sector, investment on emerging technologies, and I believe that this is the time, this is the right moment to change, to act, and to redefine. And it is it is a good opportunity to create new cultural experiences.
Yes.
It's an opportunity. We don't have any other choice. We have to cope. We have to adapt. So let's take it as an opportunity to create something new, to create new cultural experiences.
For you, which are, let's say, the positive things that you will keep from this strange hybrid environment?
Knowledge, different knowledges, many things. It's an opportunity to think and about things that we have taken for granted, like health and relations. And so these are the positive for me. Well, the negatives, the distancing measures, the difficulties, and all this that we have already, the layoffs, the reduction, the funds reductions, and all these are the negative part. But we have to be positive.
Yes.
I don't believe it's the death of culture. As long as people exist, culture will survive, will be alive.
Yes. Marina, what about you?
Well, I think it's all about a renegotiation of space. And space, I mean both physical and virtual. And I mean space in many ways. I mean space between us, between audience and artists, between artists themselves, between artists in different countries, space between the arts themselves. I think we are learning how to come together again in new ways, and I find that exciting, even though it wasn't caused by a positive thing. There are positive things that can come out of it. It's a renegotiation of space between the state and the artists, especially here in Cyprus. We've seen that, like you said, the artists of Cyprus came together. The state had to take a stance. It hasn't yet done it sufficiently, but I think good things will come out of it. It's a renegotiation of what space the arts occupy in our society and what space we want them to occupy in our society. So I feel that although it's very difficult, and I understand that we are sitting here having a great discussion while people out there in the arts are going to be starving, and I have to say that, and it pains me, and I don't know how we will come across this. I'm hoping that because we are a small place in Cyprus, we will be able to take care of each other, and people are coming together in solidarity. But at the same time, yes, it is a renegotiation of how we want our arts to be in our society, and make and take a great part of our identity. So I think we have to focus on that and try to be as positive as possible.
Great, great. I would like now to give you, let's say, the screen, the floor, whatever, for a very short final message to all our friends who watch this discussion. Nihal, let's start with you.
I mean, I think we will always keep finding ways to get around whatever restriction we're faced with, as long as we are open and we are understanding and we listen to each other. We listen to the needs of artists, we listen to the needs of the community, and we will figure out a way. Of course, it is not easy to do something across Cyprus under these circumstances when it's such a challenge to cross. I mean, which was something that we used to do every day. I mean, we have to acknowledge that there was and there are people who were beyond these mental barriers that divide Cyprus. And now, because of the restrictions, it's not very easy to do that. But I think mentally, we will still keep on creating the ground to do that and to bring the artists and the communities together. Hopefully, with more contact, let's say, with the world, which is something that these new online platforms is enabling.
Thank you, Nihal. Monica?
Um, I will end up with a question of whether we're able to create a productive dialogue and a communication between us, the stakeholders and a foundation and art centers, in order to enhance and to develop and to set up the infrastructures of sustainability in this field. Are we able to do so?
Are we?
Are we?
Marina, are we?
Well, I was thinking of how to finish, and I think the one thing I want to keep saying is speak up, voice out, reach out to each other, speak to each other. It's the only way. If
Dialogue.
we can keep together, dialogue, and then Monica started, and she started with mentioning dialogue. I think it's essential. It's the essential thing to do, and I'm hoping that the state will be able to conduct this dialogue in an open way, really listening, not just conducting dialogue in order to meet the requirement of having an open dialogue, but really listening. There are solutions. There are great people out there that can offer solutions and suggestions, and I think all we need to really foster is dialogue.
Exactly, and thank you for this, Marina. I think that's all that I need to say. I mean, we are strong, we are here, we are present, we are creative, but we are in pain, we are in trouble. The artistic sector, our art centers, our whole community is facing very difficult and contested times. We are strong, but we need support. We need all the support we can get from each one of us. We need to hug together, but also we need supporting and supportive policies. And that's, I think it's a common fact that it's recognizable in all the countries where art and culture is performed. So let's hope for a better future. Let's fight for a better future. Let's act wisely for a better future. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Nihal. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you,
Marina.
Yiannis, for inviting us.
Thank you all from Nicosia.